All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to this pop-up episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. We have kind of an interesting topical topic this week, this episode. This is something that's been in the news a bunch recently because a lot of this stuff just came out, all of these indictments and stuff. So the topic today is trolls and their effect on society in general. So trolls have always been around as long as the internet has been around. Probably since the earliest days of Telnet and stuff like that. I would imagine that there were trolls even at that point. But they become more ubiquitous and more powerful now, and they seem to be having a tremendous effect on realms outside of the technological arena, or they're not just contained to forums and people's social media pages anymore. So how did that happen, Cody? As Cody is just silent. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear. Well, I can hear you now, but you were not moving. I thought you had dropped off.
Well, let's find out.
If that was on my end or your end, but I thought you had dropped off for a second there because I stopped being able to hear you.
So basically my point was, I'm not sure if anyone heard any of my points, but they were all terrible. So don't worry about it if you didn't hear them. My point was that they are not contained to the web anymore. They're not just on forums or people's social media profiles, spamming a bunch of trolly comments. They're actually having an effect on the real world outside of technology. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So just to be clear for anyone who doesn't know, a troll on the internet is anyone who tries to sow discord. And that can be by being cheeky. It can be by being sarcastic. It can be asking you question after question. I mean, the typical example I always think of of a troll is like the brother and sister who the brother starts punching his sister and the mother's like, all right, stop punching your sister. And so the brother holds his fist right in front of his sister's face. And the sister's like, mom. And he's like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. That's kind of a troll. Like they're not breaking any rules per se, but they're just trying to aggravate you and get you frustrated. And that's their goal, is to get you angry and frustrated. And as you said, it's been around long before the internet. The advent of the internet gave trolls a great platform on which to spread their discontent, especially because a lot of the communication is anonymous, which kind of will get to the weird situation where people who are anonymous are somehow believed more than people who are not anonymous. But the anonymity has emboldened these trolls because you can't, do a background check on them and find out, that they're from Russia, or they're obviously trying to stoke discord or whatever. But as I was saying, it was kind of a natural outgrowth of the internet. And as trolls got more and more of a platform with Facebook, with Twitter, with the dumpster fire that is 4chan, and you have Reddit, and most of these again are anonymous. Facebook is not anonymous, but it also allows you to create it doesn't permit it, but you can create fake accounts for Facebook that aren't really representing you. So this anonymity has emboldened trolls to further their discord, and also the reach of the internet has allowed them to reach more people. And then kind of the touch-off effect, where they kind of get one other person to believe them, and then that person goes and does the dirty work for them because that person believed what the troll said, and so then spreads that to other people and is inadvertently starts trolling other people because they're spreading disinformation.
Man, so it's just a huge network effect at that point.
Right. It's again, we talk about this all the time.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna spin back up OBS because OBS is chugging right now. So there are issues with our stream on Facebook and Periscope. So bear with us, Periscope and Facebook, as we restart this stream real quick. I think we'll stay live on YouTube. Might as well make this just like a glorious mess of an episode. All right. Let me just remove a bunch of this stuff and restart OBS real quick. You guys, now YouTube is seeing behind the curtains, and this is going to be a great podcast episode too.
Well, YouTube is what's funny is in my research on this topic, YouTube did not experience much trolling, and really, if you've ever looked at YouTube comments, man, they are some of the trashiest of trash comments you've ever seen in your life.
Cesspool YouTube.
Yeah.
Comment
but oddly enough, the Russians really didn't focus their effort too much on YouTube. I guess it kind of makes sense because it's a visual medium, and if you saw some like comrade holding a bottle of vodka, you'd kind of be onto him.
It is weird though that YouTube didn't get affected.
Yeah,
you think that, especially the reach that it has.
Right. Exactly. The funny thing is the new thing with YouTube is they have a bot read the news. Have you seen those YouTube videos?
With the teddy bear animation.
I haven't seen with a teddy bear, but I believe what they're trying to do is just rank high on YouTube. So they basically just have a bot read like a New York Times article, but in video form. Huh. So if you like look up video Russian bots, the top YouTube hit is just a bot reading the New York Times article on Russian bots. And I don't understand what that could be for other than just to try to kind of rank high on YouTube.
All right, bear with us. Is this stream frozen still?
Which one frozen?
OBS is frozen.
It's chugging, man.
Yeah, do not update software ever.
Ever. I finally bit the bullet and upgraded to iOS 11, and I hate it.
Oh, it's the worst. All the text is huge. Well, I guess we might as well just keep this episode going for YouTube, since YouTube is legit still. So let's talk about the Russian troll farms. I was trying to read up a little bit on what the heck Russian troll farms even are, because in my head they were just literal warehouses of people who just spent their days trolling various political accounts or newspaper sites, or basically anywhere they can get their nonsense out. Social media, Facebook's a big one. And that turned out to be mildly correct. I think one of the guys who actually worked in one described it as being exactly like Orwell's 1984, where you just basically have people sitting in cubes spreading disinformation and madness throughout the world and just trying to generate as much chaos as possible. It's weird that exists. I have no idea how that happens.
Yeah, well,
where do you think that came from?
You know, I think you can actually credit the systematic, because we've had it the other way before. We've had it the other way before. We've had companies who have hired people to leave positive reviews about their product and speak highly about their product on social media. We've seen that, but no one at least got caught doing it the other way, which is basically the equivalent of, say, Toyota hiring an army of people just to talk shit about Ford. That's basically what happened, and even less coordinated than that, because these Russian troll farms were just trying to get us, and by us I mean U.S. citizens, fighting with each other. Which
mission accomplished. I mean, they're incredibly good at what they do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anyone who doesn't think that they succeeded is insane, because we've always had two political parties, and the political parties have agreed on very little. But now it's gotten to the point where the opposite party is the enemy, not just my fellow citizen who holds a different viewpoint than me. It's become the opposite party is the enemy. That's how we treat each other. Like we treat each other like we hate each other on a very personal level. And this is, go back in the history of party politics, we haven't gotten along, but this is the first time where we've outright hated each other. And a large part is that is due to the fact that the Russians were very successful in this campaign to get us at each other's throat.
And how were they that successful? I mean,
because
the strange thing to me is that their mischief had any sway whatsoever, that it actually had power, and people, like you had said earlier, the people give clout to completely anonymous or posts by somebody who they have no knowledge of who the heck they are.
That's right. And it's maddening because generally I have conservative viewpoints. I like to think of myself as open-minded, but I come from this strange background where I was a journalist. I have a journalism degree. I was in the mainstream media, as it's called, and kind of I know how it works. And so it's maddening because there's two reasons why it's really maddening. Number one, no one kind of understands the difference between journalism / reporting and columnists / opinions. So the media is split on those two fronts. And actually, I blame the media for not making a clear distinction. But you have news and reporting and analysis, columnist, opinion. And the people on the columnist side, they're paid to give their opinion. And yes, members of the media tend to be more liberal than non-members of the media. That is true. But reporters, their whole schooling is to teach them to be objective. Are they always objective? Of course not. Do they make mistakes? Of course they do. But like, you get suspended if you're a journalist and you make a mistake. When you're in school, if you get a fact wrong in a paper, it's an automatic F. Like, it's taken very seriously. Columnists and analysts, they're not held to the same standard. And so my point is, it's created this atmosphere where there's this group of people who don't trust the media at all. They do not trust the media. So the media comes out and says, folks, like, these are fake accounts that you're talking to, and they are trying to get you upset. And it's like, oh yeah, it's the liberal media trying to, sway us to their opinion because they don't like what these trolls are saying. And so they kind of seek out their own echo chamber. And this goes for both sides. They seek out their own echo chamber that kind of says what they want to hear, and that's what these Russian bots were saying, is that the mainstream media lies. Oh, here's another example of the media
Liberal
lying.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They just fed off this powder keg environment where a lot of people already didn't like Barack Obama. A lot of people already didn't like Donald Trump. A lot of people didn't like Hillary Clinton. A lot of people didn't like Bernie Sanders. And they kind of played off that powder keg waiting to happen. And again, the whole distrust thing. And they created this fighting environment where people were so eager to kind of prove themselves right, they would take anything that sounded like what they believed and run with it, which is how you get things like Hillary Clinton being involved in a child pornography ring out of a pizza place. I mean,
well, that's true. I mean, I think that's subjective. I can't see any flaw in that. That just seems too believable.
But that's the thing. I was
going to say it's nuts, though, that it doesn't help that was the most contentious election that has happened since probably like the 19th century. There were some really contentious elections back then, but I can't remember one that was as vicious as the one that we experienced just 2 years ago. So that obviously doesn't help the situation, and it makes it easier for these troll farms to have an effect. But it almost seems like that is an end game scenario, by which I mean, if you lose complete faith in the media, then the media telling you that they're trying to do their jobs and tell you facts serves almost no purpose because people have no faith in the media. Like,
that's right.
There's like a point that you reach where it's just all downhill from there.
That's
and
right.
There's no salvaging it. I don't know how you you pull up out of the dive at that point.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And I've told you, we've talked about this plenty of times before. And I think the major problem with the media is it's become a mix of entertainment and news, much like ESPN for sports. And they have a big problem separating that two, being like, okay, Rachel Maddow, she's an entertainer. Sean Hannity, he's an entertainer. They are going to say things to get ratings. That is their job. They are on the same network as actual reporters who are going to report facts. But as we've said before, people don't want to hear bare facts. They want to hear the facts and then someone's opinion on the facts, or just someone's opinion. And so there wouldn't be a news media if they didn't have those opinion shows and those people throwing out crazy arguments like Laura Ingraham telling LeBron James to shut up and dribble. Like, that was an inflammatory comment that she knew would split people and get ratings. So what I always tell people is ignore that stuff. Or if you want to watch it like you would WWE, because that's what it is. It's pretend outrage to get ratings. That's all it is. Actual reporting is verifiable. Now, again, you get into the anonymous sources, and I tell people to be cautious about anonymous sources, but most of reporting is done based off of verifiable facts that you can go up and you can look at the documents. You could request the documents yourself through a Freedom of Information request. Scientific reporting, they report on the studies. You can go look at the study yourself, and you can look at the methodology and determine if it's a worthwhile study. It's all there in good reporting. You can actually see the sources and make a decision on yourself if the journalist presented the story in an accurate fashion.
So I guess two things there. Isn't there a public service insofar as a lot of the media's role is distilling information that you would need a certain level of expertise to understand, down to the point where everyone can understand it? So it's not so much like going to look at the studies, because that might be just completely, that would be completely meaningless to most people. So there has to be a trust element that there's nothing being twisted in translation.
Right. That's correct. And that's where, again, if you don't have the wherewithal or the motivation to go verify it yourself, you kind of have to. I mean, you don't have to, but I feel it's a safer bet to trust someone whose job is contingent upon them being accurate versus a blogger or a podcaster.
Trust us on this one.
Yeah, who says that the government is trying to poison the water to create homosexual frogs.
That's also true. I mean, you're saying these stories.
I'm using bad examples because these are obviously true. But
yeah, pick something that's not factually true, and maybe it would be a good example.
But again,
are there gay frogs? Is that a thing now?
That's an Alex Jones thing or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's a fount of factual accuracy. So
yeah, I mean, he sells survival kits, man. He sells survival kits.
How did we end up here that there are such widely varying facts, which seems like the perfect environment to be trolled? Because there's almost nothing too ludicrous at this point to throw into the mix. Like, you're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, and let your mind run wild. And people will believe the darndest things.
Well, it's weird. And I read a book way long ago, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was like how to deal with a false rumor. And it made the point that if you ignore a rumor, people start saying, he's not saying anything about it, must be true. If you deny it, he's like, why? If he didn't do it, why is he denying it? There's like no, anything you do once a rumor is out there gives credence to it. And like the advice given in this book was to take the rumor and make it so unbelievable that it kind of ends in its tracks. So,
we talked about this. It's the clear and present danger defense.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're not good friends. We're lifelong friends.
Yeah,
give them nowhere
exactly.
to go.
But how do you take Hillary Clinton running a child pornography ring out of a Pizza Hut, and how do you elevate that? Like, and the aliens were the pepperoni on the pizza. Like, I don't know how you add like to that rumor. It's like that used to be true, but now, as crazy as you may try to make a rumor, the more believable it is, and I just do not understand it.
Yeah, there's no. This is another. I feel like this live stream has turned into a series of there's no way out of the situation.
Right.
I feel like we
Well,
constantly say to ourselves, like, I don't know how we get out of this because, A, there's no trust in the media and there's no way to regain that trust. B, there's no sense of uh like a calm, rational exploration of stories to the point where it's something what's the expression? Uh I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like a crazy statement deserves, or like a wild statement deserves a ton of evidence. What's that expression?
I don't know. I don't know. You got me on that one.
Uh, well, talk to those 2 points while I look up what the phrase is that I'm thinking of.
Sure, and you're right, because I certainly don't have a solution, and a kind of a point that we've ignored so far is that this was really a three-prong attack. We talk about the troll farms, but there's also bot farms that supplemented the trolling, and so kind of this
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's what I was trying to think of.
right.
But
That's
that
right.
doesn't matter anymore.
No, no.
Extraordinary claims now require no evidence.
Well, that's right. It's like it. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to use the Vegas shooter as an example. It was just one outrageous claim after another, and it's like they were so easily debunked, but all that does is make the people come up with another extraordinary conspiracy theory that is then debunked. But it's not like they're like, oh man, I was wrong like 50 times. Maybe I should give up. They just keep going and keep eventually they'll come up with 1,000 crazy scenarios, and one of them will end up being right. And then they've justified their whole like shotgun approach to throwing out conspiracy theories. I mean, like they did arrest someone else in connection with the Vegas shooter, and it didn't have anything directly to do with the shooter, with the shooting. But there was some like he shouldn't have sold him firearms. It was something related to the shooter. And so this was
the Arizona guy sold him like body piercing ammo. Or
right,
like
right. Right. So this was justification for all the conspiracy theorists who said there had to be more than one shooter.
What? Yeah, that's tough. That's tough to deal with.
Yeah, it really is. But
so how do you deal with that in relation to? I mean, I know Facebook's trying to deal with it in terms of monitoring the amount of fake news that makes it to their site, which is maybe one proactive way to deal with it. But if you're which obviously is going to raise the claim of censorship of non-liberal opinions that are factual and true, which I think is probably the number one claim being made about Facebook's fake news policy. But what other recourse do we have to stop this trolling effect? Because it really is having effects on our country, our democracy, our everyday lives.
Yeah, and let me just get to one point because I'm going to forget it, but it touches on this too. So the concept of bot farms. So in conjunction with the troll farm. So a troll would go and say something about like, would respond to someone, a Hillary Clinton supporter, and say something like, you were probably helping her run that child pornography ring inside the pizzeria. And then their bots. The bots are automated accounts that aren't controlled by a human being. They're just programmed to do certain things. Their bots would sweep in and like that comment. Mm-hmm. And so other people would see it and be like, there probably was a pornography ring because 50 people already liked that comment. So there's some legitimacy there. I'm not the only one who believes it. And so it reinforces that idea. Sense. Right. So, but to your question is, what can we do about it? So the tough part is like, if you just acknowledge to me, it doesn't seem like a stretch. It doesn't seem like a stretch to do this, but for a lot of people, it is. So if you could just admit to yourself that, I mean, like for example, I don't like a lot of socialist policies. I don't like a lot of ideas from socialism. At the same time, people who have the Bernie Sanders, who I'm just using an example of someone who has a lot of socialistic ideas. He doesn't think those ideas are bad for this country. He thinks those ideas are good for this country. And you may think those ideas are terrible for this country. But Bernie Sanders or whoever doesn't think that. He's trying to make this country better. You may think it's gonna destroy this country, but he's not some malevolent person who's trying to destroy the United States of America.
But yes, he is.
the people who are trying to destroy the United States, the people who are trying to destroy the United States of America is Russia. That's who's trying to destroy it. So if you just take a step back and take a breather, and whether you're about to argue with a Russian troll or a liberal or a conservative, if you just kind of like let it go, like just let it go, this problem solves itself actually. And by that I mean, like, if Twitter becomes infiltrated by Russian bots, if Facebook becomes infiltrated by Russian bots and Russian trolls, the actual social networks will collapse on themselves because they'll become such a cesspool. It'll be like Friendster and MySpace that became just such trash. The advertising dollars will dry up, and they'll just kind of collapse upon themselves. So, like, ignoring this is the way to go, because now if you have in your mind that you could be arguing with a Russian troll or even a Russian bot, like, you're just wasting your time. So if you think, okay, am I arguing with a Russian bot? Because if so, why? And you just actually put that in your head, then maybe you can actually just start letting things go. And that's how trolls die, is you ignore them.
Yeah, don't feed the troll.
That's
it's
right.
Interesting. Maybe that's the best outcome, or the optimal outcome is the steady decline of social media and people using it for what it was originally intended for, sort of catching up with friends and family.
Yeah, and as you said,
another interesting angle there too is that we have reached this weird point where people do think that political personalities are actually out to destroy the country. Like you said, people really think that Bernie Sanders wants to bring wrath and ruin upon the United States, and people really think that Donald Trump wants to bring wrath and ruin upon the United States. Whereas in earlier times, it would be, congressmen, senators, presidents might have different political ideals, but people didn't imagine that they were actively trying to destroy our country itself. So I think a large part of that has to do with the fact that there are these bubbles on the internet. There's these social media bubbles where you don't interact with anyone outside of your political viewpoint. You basically only interact with people who hold almost identical political beliefs to you. And so there's no cross political conversation. And I think it's really easy when you don't interact with another group of people to demonize them and imagine that there's something else entirely who, actively want to ruin this country, ruin your lives, like just destroy everything, which is complete madness.
Right. And we have taken for granted, or we have assumed that the more communication, the more diversity of opinion, the more absolute good we're going to have. And there's consequences when you put people together. There's a lot of good that can come from it, and there's a lot of problems that can come from it too. And we've been naive, and I say we as a country, we've been kind of naive to that fact until recently, where we just thought, oh, you give everyone a voice on the internet and everything will be that much better because there'll be open dialogue. Well, okay, but that's naive because people aren't going to use it to have sophisticated debates and disagreements. They're going to use it to troll each other, and they're going to use it to create discord. So having a diversity opinion is great, but it also brings with it problems that need to be accounted for. Otherwise, you get situations like this where it's a powder keg, it blows up, no one trusts each other anymore. Everyone thinks the other person's the enemy, and I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle now.
It's almost like a failed experiment. There was an idea that you give everyone access, you give everyone a voice, and there would be open dialogue and cordial discussion. And the exact opposite is proven the case. So it's almost like we were wrong. The originators of these networks were just wrong, which is fine. I mean, people are wrong all the time. It just so happens that they were massively wrong in the sense that the exact opposite of what they predicted happened.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's at least no social network that I know of, like, called the Great Debaters, where you go in, you have a civilized debate, you're penalized for flaws in logic, you have rules and you have civil discourse. I don't know of a social network like that, because that's not what people want to do. They don't want to have that kind of introspective conversation with each other, that maybe their viewpoints are challenged and maybe they actually learn something. Maybe they find out, oh my gosh, I was actually wrong about this, that, or the other thing. They want their echo chamber where people like their comments and no one challenges them. That's what people want.
I actually do still have, I registered this forever ago, dailydebaters.com. I think I've been squatting on that domain for the better part of a decade. But I honestly, I don't think it has any legs. I don't think people want debate. I think people want their cozy little bubbles.
No. And I mean, and the last part of this whole fiasco with the Russians is we mentioned a three-prong attack. We've talked about the trolls and the bots, but they also took it offline. They actually organized fake events.
That's right. Yeah. Wasn't there a Black Lives Matter event in Florida that they organized?
Near me, actually, and it was totally made up. And so what they were doing, and they were doing this online as well, they were like saying Blacktivists for Hillary, U.S. Muslims for Hillary, and trying to stage these rallies that made it look like these extremist groups supported Hillary Clinton to garner backlash for her. But yeah, it actually spilled over to the real world, and they were paying people in Hillary masks to go to rallies dressed up as a prisoner behind bars and everything. I mean, from the indictment, the Russians had $1 million a month budget. That is not insignificant.
That's an amount of money to just pay people to troll. You can get some seriously good trolls for that kind of money.
I mean, I've been trolling for free my whole life. I've been doing something wrong.
You could have been making bank. You got to renegotiate that contract.
Well, yeah, and you made this point. Unfortunately, our democracy makes us prime targets for this. Because if someone tries this in Russia, they just shoot them.
Yeah, you just put that troll down.
But our democracy allows for this kind of insane rumor, innuendo, and flat out lies.
It's one of those weird things where it's just a confluence of events, and it might be the fact that widespread communication in a pure democratic society leads to just epic trolling. I mean, that might just be like the natural endpoint of this grand experiment.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's well, I don't see it any other way. I mean, they'll eventually, this is the end point. This is the point that we're going to arrive at. And like I said, I don't know how, with this many people, you backtrack from here. Like I said, if everyone could just ignore it, and not get angry, it would go away. But do we really think that's possible? I don't.
Again, I think the proof is in the pudding. Like you look at the instances where it's like, all this stuff got leaked, but let's make sure not to look at it. Like, let's all be, good citizens and make sure not to look at. And the first thing that people do is massively download it and look at it.
That's right.
So again, we have a theory. The theory is if you tell people don't look at something, they'll be good human beings and not look at it. The actuality is everyone looks at it. So maybe like you just never want to go the litigation route, but maybe that's the only recourse left is like what Facebook is doing, but made explicit policy to monitor fake news or flag fake news. Maybe like posting, if 100% of people's wall posts are from MSNBC, you have to like sneak one from Fox News in there. Like every fourth post, like just write that into policy. I don't know. I don't know what the could. I mean, I don't know that it can get worse, but again, that I am constantly proven wrong on that front too.
I mean,
and we got another election cycle coming up in like 9 months, so God only knows how crazy that's going to get.
Yeah, and I mean, the folks like Alex Jones. I would encourage any right-thinking person to go watch Alex Jones, and if you watch Alex Jones and put in your mind that this man has like 2 million YouTube subscribers, and then put in your mind that these people believe Alex Jones, maybe that will help you to realize it's pointless to engage them, and this animosity will sort of kind of go away. I did it. I was like
uniques in the US to Infowars.com. I shouldn't have given that site out, but 2.6 million uniques. It's tough.
It's insane.
That's a lot of people.
And I'm telling you right now, the more you tell these people they're crazy or that this is a lie, the more they believe it's true. And
well, let me before we sign off here. I think it doesn't help that the media does have egg on its face, and political entities do have egg on their face from actual, let's say like negative news or negative events, like the Hillary Clinton DNC thing where they, actively tried to get Bernie Sanders not to be the primary candidate. I mean, stuff like that doesn't help.
I'll take that as an example. I'll take another one. So I was talking with someone the other day about, I don't know if you remember, it was back when George H., the younger George Bush, was president. And there was all this controversy about
WH, like back in the
90s? The younger one, George W. Bush.
W. Yeah, W.
He was, it was CBS was running a series of documents that proved he lied about his service or something like that.
Got Dan Rather fired, right? That was
right. And so my point was this person was using this as an example to say why the media shouldn't be trusted. But I look at that and say that's the reason that the media should be trusted. Dan Rather had an illustrious career up to that point, and he was fired because of that. And they didn't lie about it. They didn't fact check that document. They ran with the document before fact checking it. And that cost Dan Rather his career. Look at Brian Williams.
I was going to say Brian Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was a helicopter, right? He lied about being under fire in a helicopter.
That's right. He was fired. Think about what happens if Alex Jones lies. Like, that's what I look at is what is the motivation to tell the truth? And places like individual reporters and anchors, it's their jobs, it's their livelihood. Organizations, they have an inherent reason to be accurate, because if they're not, they'll lose trust, and that is actually their collateral. Even with your example with Hillary Clinton, and I agree, like politicians lie all the time, and so it makes them an easy target. But if we look at reason behind politicians' motives. So Bernie Sanders was not a Democrat; he was an independent, and he claimed he ran on the Democratic ticket so he wouldn't just be laughed at running as an independent like Ross Perot. So the DNC is not a government organization. They are not neutral at all.
Right.
They wanted Hillary Clinton because they didn't want an independent and come and infiltrate their party and become their party's candidate because he wasn't a member of their party. So they did not want Bernie Sanders. And it makes sense that they didn't want Bernie Sanders. But Fox News makes it sound like the DNC is this government body that is controlled by Hillary Clinton that had this thing in for Bernie Sanders for no reason whatsoever. By the way, the RNC didn't want Donald Trump. The RNC tried to subvert Donald Trump. These political parties, these campaigns, these committees, they're not supposed to be objective. It's they have a candidate they want, and they're going to try to push that candidate as much as they can.
Yeah, I think they bet on the wrong horse in that case. That's an entirely different conversation. But yeah, I guess it is the media angle is interesting because there is the culpability aspect in that people actually do get punished for not being factually accurate. And so I guess the like you said, that should make you trust the media more insofar as people are actually punished for not doing their job well. Just rare today.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think that, again, like I always say, take a step back and look at the ramifications. Don't look at the media got something wrong, because everyone gets stuff wrong. Try to separate a reporter versus columnist versus analyst, because reporters are going to try to report facts. Columnists are going to try to get you worked up with opinion. And try to separate yourself from the hyperbole. When you hear a statement, take all the adjectives out of the statement, take all the adverbs out of the statement, and just look at it as a very bland statement and see if it holds up. I was saying this the other day, I wish everyone in this country at every level, elementary, middle, and high school, had to take courses in logic, because that would solve a lot of this if there were logic classes taken. I was all 4 years in debate, and you could not use, you had to be kind of well spoken. That helped, but if you didn't use logic, you were never going to win a debate. You got penalized for using emotional arguments. The only thing that scored points was logical arguments based off of evidence and fact. And so I like to think that kind of molded me into being able to separate the absurd from the somewhat accurate things that deserve to be looked into.
Well, that's all well and good, except money talks, and what's popular and what gets eyeballs is hyperbole at this point.
Yep. WWE. That's right. It's the whole WWE thing.
Yeah, I don't see a way around that, because it almost seems, if you try to be calm, collected, reasoned, nobody would watch you, because there's somebody screaming on the other channel, and that's way more exciting.
That's right. That is exactly right. And
so maybe there should be a law there about like how much you can scream in a given hour-long block of television on a news channel.
It's interesting because we do have comparisons, and you probably have a better perspective. Well, you do have a better perspective on this than I do, but Britain's libel laws are much tighter than ours. We have a much more free press than the UK does. You can get arrested or sued for saying false or damaging things about certain people in the UK.
The huge difference there, anytime you're talking about litigation outside the United States, the huge difference is everywhere else except here basically has a loser pays system. So it's you can bring a libel suit against somebody and not be out a couple $1 million, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like it's much harder. It's not necessarily like the libel laws are stricter, but it's also easier to bring people to task for what they do. And the news is different over there. It certainly is. I mean, the news broadcasts themselves are much more reasoned. There's a lot less hyperbole. They don't get quite as angry. There's a lot of anger over here, which is perfect for trolls. I mean, if there was ever a country more easily trolled than the United States today, I don't know what country that would be. Because half of the country is at the throats of the other half, and vice versa.
Yeah, and from our ilk, we always look for a technological solution. And the thing is, there are technological solutions. I mean, we can verify most of these claims using technology very quickly. We talked about the use of blockchain to verify things. Most documents are online these days. Most scientific studies are online these days. The data is all
alternate
there.
Facts? Aren't those just alternate facts?
Well, that's my point. Is even if we can derive truthiness or falsiness from statements, we could even, like I said, one of the things that I always do when I'm communicating and someone gets upset is I start stripping away the adjectives and adverbs from what they're saying. You could literally assign anger / troll scores based on the tone, the digital tone of that people are saying, and you could probably start rating the probability that someone is just trying to troll you. But
that's interesting. That's really interesting, actually.
But there's no trust. So if we came up with an algorithm that did that, people would think that we were, ultra right wing looking to
just because I'm passionate doesn't mean I'm trolling.
Right. And Alex Jones would come out and say that we're poisoning frogs with. That's what I'm saying.
If we put the troll meter on Alex Jones, the server would explode.
and so, but we're to the point where people don't even trust algorithms. So it's going to, if we start coming with a troll score, it's just going to reinforce the troll side that, oh yeah, it's liberal Gunner Technology or conservative Gunner Technology out to get us, out to attack us. Don't let their plan succeed. Fight back.
It's really like an Inception situation where you plant the bug in people's minds that you can't trust anything that you read from the other side of the aisle, and you will never trust anything you read from the other side of the aisle.
Well, and it's really weird because Inception's a great point, because it's not even don't trust anything from the other side of the aisle. They basically teach you don't trust anything that your intuition says that goes against your intuition. And then they slowly work on shaping your intuition. So
that's so devious.
Yes, it really is. And again, I don't know there's any way to fight that aside from like hardcore conditioning to the other side of it. I don't know.
Try your best. Convince the people around you, and maybe they can convince the people around them, and maybe we'll rein this back in.
Yeah, just don't call people names. Just if you're going to engage people in political discourse, just don't call them names.
Yeah,
that is.
It's always fun to have a good debate. That's what I don't understand why people get so worked up when arguing with someone who has diametrically opposed opinions to them. Because I'm always fascinated to hear why people believe what they do, especially when it's the exact opposite of what I believe. Because I would love to hear. Yeah. I love seeing how other people's minds work, but I don't think that's the case anymore. People hate the way other people's minds work now. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of dark side right now.
I mean, imagine if there was something you could do, like power your home from the hatred. Imagine if we could just somehow capture this hatred and do something meaningful with it, because there is so much to go around.
See, now that is a great idea. So you could even, I mean, you could convert the kinetic energy, just have people go out and like hammer the ground and store that kinetic energy up. And we could use it to light our homes. We could fuel our homes with our rage.
It feels like we're wasting a lot of hatred, and we should get something out of it.
See, that's the real takeaway. That's real. Anyone listening, if you have an idea of how to harness hatred, get in touch with Gunner Technology, and maybe we can build something amazing. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for joining me, Cody.
Yeah, man.
And we'll talk to you guys later.